Okay, welcome back, Raider Nation. How's everybody today? Thanks for joining the Raider roster report today. This is Raider Sparks coming at you with another episode. It's been a little slow lately, obviously, with free agency and the Raiders really getting into their due diligence of the draft and all the draft visits, things like that. So I just wanted to kind of highlight a little bit. It's going to be a quicker video today. Just want to kind of get into a couple things. But thanks, everybody, for subbing. We've reached over 300 now, so the goal is to get up to 400. So keep sharing, liking the video, and definitely keep adding the comments. Love to hear what everybody has to say. And just to follow up on the last video, um, I think a lot of people are split on Darren Waller, at least Raider Nation. A lot of people had strong opinions about keeping him for sure. And then others had no problem trading him for a first round pick. So Raider Nation is a little bit split on the whole thing. I left my comments in there. I think if we personally, if we got a first round and one other type pick, I think I would make the move, especially given the fact that this class and how strong the wide receiver class is. I would definitely do it. And just history sort of tells you, well, actually, finances tell you more than anything. It's gonna be tough to keep everybody, and history says that Darren Waller is maybe not the type of tight end in the Patriots model. Although he's one of my favorite players on the team, he's grown up with us, obviously a Pro Bowler, and I would love to see how these guys all do together for the next couple of years. So I'm not saying I would trade. I'm just saying he's the most likely, and there's a lot of reasons why the Raiders would want to get a first round pick. It's the drafts in Vegas and that type of thing. But yeah, I think if you read through the comments, you'll see all my thoughts on that and all Raider Nations. I thought it was pretty cool to see everything. So just wanted to get into this video here on the Raider visits. And before I go any further, if anybody has a better site to find out the true visits, or if there's an official site, because I just kind of piecing a lot of this together, a lot of this information together from different websites and things like that. But it's been reported that they've met with in private Marcus Jones, and I think we all know now that we get 30 private visits with players. And so Marcus Jones out of Houston, very electric player. He's dealing with an injury right now, so he hasn't really worked out or the combine numbers, but intriguing player, dynamic as all heck. I mean, he's a great returner and a strong cornerback for sure. 5 interceptions last year. The only knock in his game really is his height and his age. He'll be 24. So, but the Raiders brought him in for a private to work out, and I've been hearing a lot of Raider Nation talk about Marcus Jones, and I actually highlighted him before in our cornerback video. So if you haven't checked that out, please go take a look at it. But I kind of talked about him a little bit there. He's a really exciting, dynamic player for sure. And one thing that Raider Nation has been talking about is, obviously bringing him as a cornerback, that could be a little risky with his height, but also, his potentially playing quarterback, wide receiver, kind of like Edelman or whatever, coming out of college as a DB, switching to receiver, that type of thing. And he played a lot. He has played receiver and has done quite well at Houston, and obviously his return game. But what I wanted to put out there was the possibility of him playing safety. Given his height and his athletic ability, there's plenty of safeties under 5'9", and just to give you a couple, and Tyrann Mathieu, who we're all hoping that the Raiders do sign, he's under 5'9". He's 5'8 3/4 at 186 pounds. He ran a 4.5 40, 2.61 20 split, 1.56 10. So he's very shifty. Vertical was 34, broad jump 111, 17 inches, and three cone 6.87, which is all very good. But Tyrann Mathieu was a Swiss Army knife in college. He played cornerback on the outside. He played in slot, nickel, whatever you want to say, and played safety position as well. And so he had that in his background. And then if you look at Antonio Winfield, he's under 5'9". He's 5'8 3/4 basically. Ran a 4.4 140, a 2.57 20, so a little better than Tyrann, a little faster. 1.55 10 split. So very, very athletic. 3.95 20 shuttle, a 6.84 3 cone. Has 7 interceptions his senior season there at Minnesota. And then if you look at Marcus Jones, we don't have his exact stats. We can kind of go and look at some other history on him, and history is going to show that he's got the shiftiness and sort of that 3 cone, the broad jump, the vertical. It seems like he's a really dynamic athlete, And from everything that I've seen on film, he certainly looks the part. I don't know what his straight line speed is, but I do believe some other reporting that's out there that his 20 shuttle, which is hugely important, and his broad jump and vertical for explosion for cornerbacks and safeties. Those are the numbers that are sort of looked at. Like when we looked at Hobbs as a slot corner. Those are some of the numbers that really popped off the tape. Is that explosive, if that off the ground, that shifted, change of direction, and I believe Marcus Jones has those traits. He just doesn't have the size quite of Hobbs. But Hobbs coming out was funny because everybody pegged him as a cornerback. In the draft, that's where he played in Illinois, but a lot of the draft sites had him as a safety. So, and I haven't seen that as much with Marcus Jones, but his physical traits kind of lead you to believe that he might be a very dominant safety in the league. And what do we need in the back end of our defense is a ball hawking safety, somebody with great ball skills, which he has. He's a receiver and a returner. So, and with that shiftiness and that Swiss Army knife type that we're looking for with Tyrann Mathieu, there's no reason to believe that Marcus Jones couldn't be that. So, I just wanted to kind of hit on that a little bit. And maybe a little bit different perspective of what other people are saying about Marcus Jones coming in as a cornerback, a nickelback, bring him as just a wide receiver or converting him to wide receiver or just at the very most, bring him in as a punt kick returner, which you would do. But I look at it differently. I think just by looking at some of the current safeties that are kind of dominating the league right now, he certainly could fit the mold of that type of a player. And then I'll kind of go through some other visits that we've done so far. What I've gotten on the reporting is we've Devontae Wyatt, which we've met with, which I think is interesting because he's ranked on the consensus big board 26. PFF has him at 17. So it's interesting we'd use a top 30 visit on Devontae Wyatt. I'm going to say we wouldn't. He's met with a ton of teams. Obviously, he's probably, if not one or the best defensive tackle in the class, either him or, depending on you want a nose tackle, or Jordan Davis or him as a more of a three technique or whatever. But that can be debated. But certainly a highly ranked. So it's interesting we'd use a median on him. So perhaps we are going to move up in the draft if we're going to do that. But everybody else that we met with or many of the other guys we met with is in that sort of 70 to 90 range. And so Marcus Jones is at consensus has him at 94. PFS has him at 91. So just give you a sense of where he's at. Another guy that is not even on some of the draft sites, but it's reported in Twitter, Isaiah Likely. Very, very dynamic player. SB Nation has him voted as most versatile tight end with in the group with 12 TD catches last year, which is the most among tight ends. And I my last tight end video I did, and please hopefully you like, share, subscribe to the video, but go check out my tight end video. I talked heavily about well-rounded tight ends, and I highlighted Isaiah Likely as well. Just didn't spend a lot of time on him because I felt that he was going to be drafted too high. I thought we would do this later in the draft, but Isaiah Likely is consensus has him at 71, but PFF has him all the way down to 108. So it's kind of a broad range, I guess, for him as far as the draft goes and some of the draft boards. But I think the Raiders, if they were going to get him, probably would be in the third round. According to PFF, more like a fourth round pick. So we'll see how that all plays out. But Isaiah Likely, and the reason I talked about well-rounded tight ends is because the Patriots' history is more well-rounded tight ends. I went the whole list of all the top safety or tight ends in the last 10 or so years with the Patriots, and they all had that sort of in common. That well-roundedness, the ability to block is key. Except for maybe Hernandez, all of the tight ends had that ability to block, and Isaiah Likely shows that ability. He's a converted receiver to tight end, kind of like Waller. Doesn't quite have the same speed, but you can see his athletic profile on the screen. As far as the vertical, the broad jump, very very good. The straight line speed is okay. It's not going to blow you away by any means, but it's still fine for the metrics as far as the size and everything else. But he's a 6'4", 6'5" guy, 245 to 250 weight. So definitely good there. bench 15. So everything else is okay for him. There's nothing's really eye popping jumping off the screen. But the one thing that for him is he does everything. This is kind of what they want. There's some explosion there with the vertical and the broad jump. So that's key for the Patriots. And now that's just sort of how we're evaluating players. They often get players. They look at the vert a lot, the broad jump a lot for their players. They like that explosion. But yeah, definitely a very good player. So what's it mean for Waller? Maybe not a whole lot for Waller. I would be more concerned about Morrow at this point, but yeah, if you bring Likely in, definitely there could be a movement with Waller there. There could be a movement with Foster there, just because Isaiah Likely is still more of a receiver than he is a blocker, but he's shown a high ability to do it. He's actually a very very good downfield blocker, inline blocking. He showed traits of it. Just needs to kind of maybe improve a little bit. But to give you a sense of where he's at in the draft order, sort of that 71 to 108 range is sort of where the draft boards are putting him at. So just thought it was sort of interesting how we're using a visit to pick a tight end that possibly could be a third or fourth round pick. Anyways, to give you a little insight with that. Jeremy Sawyer, I highlighted him in our offensive guard group. The more I think about it, though, the more he could be looked at possibly more of a right tackle. I didn't really like him as much at tackle as his feet. I thought were a little bit slow. The only thing is with him, he hasn't done the combine or anything, or even the pro day, but the Raiders got a private workout with him, and so I don't think it counts towards the visit because they actually just worked him out in private. But I would love to know how the workout went, and I guess if he did get a top 30 visit, we would know for sure how that went. But I thought it was interesting, and one of the reasons I profiled for a tackle that I think he might be a tackle for us over a guard is because of his weight. He's 6'3", which is sort of the Patriot mold, the 6'3" range, but he's 321, a little heavier. Now Simpson is as well, so maybe we are transitioning to a heavier guard. And so if that's the case, I would like him much better at guard just because of his feet. But it could be a developmental thing where they think they could do it. He did start 21 starts, most of them in Georgia, 18 of them are at left tackle, but two at right tackle and one at left guard. So interesting that that's the case. Super strong. I think he had 31 reps on the bench. Um, so very, very, very strong showing there. And that's the thing with him. You can see he's a super strong dude. So, and I did highlight him as a possibility. I thought he might be in the second, sort of, but I think he's dropped with that footwork that he has is a little slow, and I don't know. He didn't work out, so I'm not sure if he was dealing with injury or why he didn't work out. But I would be really curious to see how that private workout went, and if he did any sort of explosive drills really well, I can see the Raiders taking a shot at him, especially since he's taken reps at all five offensive line spots. So he's even taken reps at center with Georgia, just no starts at center. So he does have that versatility in his game. Let's see here. The consensus has him at 72. PFF has him at 69. So we'll see if the Raiders where they see him fitting. I just think that his size, with the Patriot way would be a right tackle size. They usually like heavier right tackles and more athletic interior. But again, we might be transitioning from that. John Simpson doesn't profile like that at all. He profiles more like Salyer, very super strong, and so maybe we want to get Simpson on the inside, and him on the inside as well. At the guard position, tons of strength. These guys would probably be two of the strongest guys on the team. Have very athletic tackles. Leatherwood would be very athletic tackle, and obviously we know Colton Miller is, and then a very athletic center in Andre James. And that could be the makeup of our line. Maybe that's the direction we're going for our line, and that would be interesting to see. So just keep him in mind as a possibility because we did use a workout with him, and we'll see if he gets a top 30 visit. I'm not sure if the workouts count. If everybody knows that answer to that question, if workouts count as a top 30 visit, I don't think they do. And again, if anybody has a website out there that's better than others, because some of them are all over the place. Another guy we've talked a lot about here that got a top 30 visit was Tyreek Woolen, and I love this player. So they have him at the consensus at 79. PFF has him at 122, which I think is way off. I definitely see him as a 79. Actually, I kind of think he's a top 50 player myself. but his traits are elite, and he's something that we don't have, a 6'4" outside cornerback, and that would be unique. When we go up against wide receivers, taller wide receivers, to have a guy at 6'4", 205 to match up with him, and with his explosiveness. I mean, he's got a 42-inch vertical leap. There's not much more you need to say than that, but his 40 time was very, very impressive. I mean, really everything about this man is impressive. His length at over 33-inch arms. And so his 40 at 4.28 or 4.26, I think, is tops of the class. I could see us bringing in maybe Zion McCollum because he profiles a lot like Tyreek Woolen, and his metrics are almost the same. Like his physical abilities are very, very close. Both small school guys. So Texas San Antonio for Tariq Woolen. So just keep an eye on him. I've talked a lot about him on the show. He's one of my favorites in the draft. And a lot of Raider Nation has him as one of their favorites as well. So just keep an eye on him as a possibility. But we did use a top 30, or are going to use a top 30 visit with him. Devontae Wyatt, I talked about him already. Aziz Olamiwu, I can't say his last name, out of Minnesota. And so interesting player. The big board has him or consensus has him at 193, PFF 279. So you look at a late round draft selection, a lot of that out of Minnesota. And a lot of that has to do with just not real impressive numbers, but very impressive uh, body type, and especially for a 3-4 defensive end. This is sort of body type that Patrick Graham would be looking for. So, not spend a lot of time. So I went and did a little bit of a series on sort of replacements for Clelin Ferrell, because that's exactly what this would be, and who we have on our roster to replace him. And right now, Malcolm Kuntz is probably not a 3-4 defensive end. He's more of a Chandler Jones outside linebacker, and I think that's kind of where they're going to have him profiled to. But we'll see during preseason and the rest of the season where he goes. But one thing is, I was talking about Farrell, is you're not going to pick up his fifth-year option, and you're not probably going to draft a high selection for him because you're looking at Farrell backing up Max Crosby. So are you going to really spend a high draft pick on a backup to a backup? No. But that backup to the backup is going to have a significant role in this defense, and it's more of a run-stopping defensive end, where Crosby's obviously our pass-rushing defensive end. And so when we get into those downs and distance, where we want more run game and a defensive end, 3-4 defensive end out there, you're going to see Farrell out there, and maybe play some 3 technique as well, and certain sub packages and what have you. But it's make or break for him on that position. But do you draft his replacement now, especially in the late rounds? And that's what Ezzy could be. He's a heavier defensive end, which is what Patrick Graham likes. He's like 285, but the wingspan is incredible. You can see his arms here. He's got over an 81-inch wingspan, super long arms, not huge eye-popping stats, but he can get do two-gap if you want him to. He's very physical. He's a very good run stopper for 3-4 defensive end, run stopping type. He's awesome. He has pass rush upside, pass rush ability. So I think that's why we're looking. We brought him in for a visit. I'm excited about the player because we could draft him possibly in the 5th round, even if he falls, maybe move up into the 6th round and get him, that type of thing. But very intriguing player. And the best thing about it is if he flashes early, we could possibly trade Farrell. We could trade Farrell. Some people say we have to wait till after June 1st, or to save half his money in the salary cap, which is $4 or $5 million. It's actually not. Sport Track says it's not. That's not actually accurate. We can trade him anytime and save it. So if we bring him in and we like what we see, we could maybe work a deal out even early. If the visit went really well, we see him as the next replacement for Klee. Maybe we could move on from Klee, save half that money early on in the process, get a draft pick and pick him with it. That's a possibility. It's something to kind of keep an eye on. Just because we will trading Clelin Ferrell, we save about $4 or $5 million. Some people are reporting that it has to be after June 1st. Sport Track's reporting that it doesn't. So if that's the case, and we like Ezzy from the media, and we like his tape, we bring him in as Max's backup to be that run stopping defensive end. With his length and the ability for Patrick Graham to coach up players, I think it could be a really good fit for the Raiders. So keep an eye on that. I mean, with that length and ability, he did have 7.5 sacks 13 and a half tackles for loss. So there's a very good, there's the ability there for him. And so I'm excited about the player, and we definitely used a visit on him. So far we've used visits on Devontae Wyatt, defensive line, and Aziz, defensive lineman as well. So a couple defensive linemen, a tight end, Isaiah Likely. NFL trade rumors has reported Kate Otten from Washington as a tight end that we brought in for a visit, but nowhere else has confirmed that. And actually, nobody's really confirmed Isaiah Likely except it's been on Twitter. So I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to go so much with Kate Otten. But we've definitely brought it. Marcus Jones, Tariq Woolen, and then another guy, Cordell Float, as well from LSU, another defensive back. So more of a Swiss Army knife. Consensus has him at 300. PFF has it at 109. So that's sort of that fourth round range. And I kind of see him more as a fourth round pick as well. I think he's going to climb up some boards. I think he's shown how athletic he is. But the Raiders did use a visit with him as well. So you can see we're definitely going after the secondary in our visits. There's other reporting with people connected to the Raiders, and they're all super athletic. Tyreek Castro Fields from Penn State is a guy that's been sort of linked to him. And then let's see here. There's a couple other guys that were sort of mentioned. Oh yeah, Fayon Hall, I think is who it is. Anyways, I'll get some more about him as well. Another defensive back. So yeah, Fayon, I think is his name. So there's a few guys, but nothing's official with him. So I didn't really want to get much into him because I hadn't seen any visits come through yet, just some connections. But definitely seeing people connected to defensive backs to the Raiders in that third and fourth round territory, as far as if you're looking at draft boards. So something to consider where they're going. Another guy that I saw reported as a top 30 was EJ Perry. A late round out of Brown. Consensus has him at 236, PFF 245, so 6th, 7th rounder type player. And obviously, we talked about, or McDaniels talked about drafting a quarterback, and so it seems like we've brought him in for a visit or a scheduled visit. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 visits that I have of pretty good reporting that they've had or have had happened with a private workout for Sawyer. And then there's some other reporting of some other visits that have been planned or possibly have happened. And then obviously you have all the combine stuff and things like that. We've met informally with guys, but it's interesting. Some of the websites, if you look at the Steelers, they've pretty much met with everybody, and it's crazy. But you definitely seen certain players with huge interests out there. If you go to these sites or whatever, you'll see certain players have had almost every team at some sort of either informal or formal visit with, and then other players just haven't gotten around or made the rounds as much yet. So, and there's still pro days going on, so that could be maybe teams are waiting for pro days. But these are just some of the players that the Raiders have brought in. I really find it interesting the Marcus Jones one because he's such a dynamic player. I really think that he could be used more as a safety than anything else in the league, just based off of Tyrann Mathieu and Antonio Winfield. So, anyways, that's all I got. I'll get more into detail of some of these players. And again, if anybody has any websites that are more official on visits, please share it in the comment section. I would like to keep track of it a little bit closer instead of having to sort of piece it all together. But anyways, yeah, definitely excited about that. Let me know your thoughts, comments. Marcus Jones, you see him as a safety. Isaiah Likely, you like him. Sally, or do you see him as a guard or a tackle? I personally see him more as a guard just because of his footwork and his strength and his size. But we'll see what the Raiders think. Tyreek Woolen, I love him as a player. I think he'd be great for the Raiders. He's not so much that Swiss Army knife, but to have a 6'4" guy that we can match up with big receivers and somebody that's as athletic as he is and physical, I think would be great. Obviously, if we trade up to get Devontae Wyatt, it would be amazing. Aziz, I like him. I highlighted Jeffrey Gunther as the replacement, late round replacement for Cleveland Farrell. That's who I highlighted in my past videos. And it'd be interesting to see if they bring him in. They might. He's a very, very good player out of Coastal Carolina as well, so I'm sure they've gotten a very good look at him if they've been scouting Isaiah Likely. But Aziz is an intriguing player with that length is very, very intriguing, and the size he's bigger at 285. And Patrick Graham does like a bigger defensive lineman. I've been saying that on his channel to nauseum. I'm probably sure you're tired of hearing me say it, but and yeah, just in the commentary about Farrell and stuff like that, but listen to all the analysis, all the YouTubers and stuff. I see it different, maybe a little differently than a lot of the other YouTubers out there seeing Cleveland Farrell fitting in the system. He's a 4-5 guy for me, an occasional sub package 3 technique, and he's really a backup to Max, and backup in the sense that when it's down in distance and it's running, then that's when you see him in the game. Until he proves that he can get a pass rush, he can win one-on-one battles in the pass rush. That's kind of where I see the fit for him, and Aziz's profile is exactly like that. So it's an interesting guy to bring in. And I hope they bring Gunther in because I think he's a really good player. So I highlighted him earlier. EJ Perry, again, a late round quarterback out of Brown. Seems to have had a very good career, very accurate thrower. Seems to be able to make all the throws. I've heard some buzz about him as well. So interesting that we've either brought him in or bring him in for a private visit. And then Cordell Float from LSU, obviously very dynamic player, very physically gifted. Swiss Army knife, can play inside, outside, wherever you need him to play in the secondary as a guy that can do it. And that's really what the Raiders now are looking for in their secondary. That's why I like Marcus Jones so much as well, is because he can do those things. But anyways, let me know your thoughts, Raider Nation. Please keep sharing, subscribing to the channel, and we will catch you again next time.